Hello and welcome to another episode of Blackjack Movies. I'm your host, Pat Hilke, taking you through the journey of the best damn Game of Thrones podcast on the internet. This is the Kings of Westeros. This is episode 5, The Bells, season 8, man. It's almost over, and we have the man, the myth, the legend, Danko Yu. What's up, Danko?
Drogon has arrived, Pat.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
He burnt the hell out of that place. King's Landing is ash. That's basically what this episode should have been called. Or Danny's a bitch.
Yep. Danny's gone crazy.
Yeah, the Mad Queen has arrived is what you should have said. All right, so
a new one.
What we do usually is we break down the episode scene by scene, character by character. We've done it all this season on the Kings of Westeros. Today it's going to be a little bit different because of another full battle episode. We're going to take it a lot like we did in episode 3 when it was the long night episode, and we're just gonna spitball, throw out predictions for the finale, just run with wherever the conversation is going to take us. So we might start with Arya and the Hound and work backwards. We might start with Varys. It doesn't really matter where we start. Where do you want to start, Danko?
Well, Varys I think is a good starting point. So he was chirping a lot the previous episode, and we predicted him to die. But here's the interesting thing. He was writing a lot of letters.
That's it, man.
And
he's got little birds.
He's got little birds, and the message is out. The message, of course, is that Jon's the better option.
Yeah.
And the rightful.
And has claim to the throne.
Right. So I think that's going to be a big ploy here in the story. And I really like this episode because I loved having the first half an hour of actual decent build-up and some motivations of the characters being shown, and then you had the battle at the end. Not that I don't like full battle episodes,
right?
But it was nice to have that too, where it gave you a little bit of everything.
It really did, because you get, like, take Tyrion for example. You get like both sides.
Right.
He's still he turns in Varys. He's still on Dany's side.
Right.
Finds out about Jaime being captured. Rescues Jaime. Still hoping that Dany will come along. With if they ring the bells, please, my queen.
Right.
Just cease fire,
Right.
And she agrees to it in that second. But then, as we see later on, just
doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, she just wants to lay waste to all of King's Landing.
Right. Yeah, and just politically, that's going to be terrible for her. She's ended up being the Queen of the Ashes, exactly what he was talking about that they didn't want her to be.
Well, and she basically predicted it to Jon. When Jon doesn't return the affections of her, tells her, look, I love you. You're always going to be my queen. But in his head, he's having this issue because he didn't get brought up as a Targaryen. He didn't get brought up as a Lannister. This whole incestual thing that those families constantly
Lannisters didn't have it till recent history, but yeah.
But you never know with that group.
Little pervs.
Yeah. And he wasn't brought up that way. Ned didn't bring him up that way, so he didn't know that it would be okay or whatever. Like, that is the stumbling block for him. He does not want to partake in that. He's in love with Dany, but he cannot bring himself to give her the affection that she wants. And once he basically shows that to her, doesn't tell her, but shows it to her, you could see it in her face, like she broken.
Knows it. Yeah, and that was a good scene too, where they finally kind of came together, and she told him, nobody loves me here. So true, and I mean, partially of no fault of her own, but partially because she's been acting like everyone should treat me like the queen.
It's strange, right? Because we have a situation where last season there was parts, and we talked about it, before the show, where they were already leading you down this path of, okay, Dany is power hungry, but she does great things. She went and saved Jon, in the north. Right. She did these amazing things. So you still love Dany, like this whole character,
right? And the previous 6 seasons have been all, Dany's the man, the woman,
right? I mean, Dany's amazing, right? And you can just see like every little stumble that she has. It just leads her further down that path of like, I'm just broken.
Right.
And we see the final blows coming from Varys, and she doesn't even blame Varys. That's how you knew, because who did she blame in that moment?
Jon.
She blamed Jon.
Yep.
The person that she loves the most, next to Khal Drogo, basically turned their back to her and said, I can't give you that same love.
Well, see, and this is also a bit of a problem for Dany, is that everybody that was on her side in Marine is done. The only one left is Grey Worm.
And he's lost his mind as well.
And he's lost his mind too, but he doesn't have any pull.
Right.
When she had Jorah, she could get some pull, even though he was this disgraced knight. When she had Barristan Selmy, that guy could give you some credence,
Yeah.
Those two guys are gone. Then you don't have... Missandei was kind of like her grounding. She lost it after that.
Yeah.
And now you have Grey Worm. He wants revenge too. So at the same point in the story, the bells go off. And this is where it could have been like, battle's won. She could have just lit up the Red Keep.
Well, and
But no, she lights
right.
up the entire
if she
city.
just lights up the Red Keep, kills Cersei, or Cersei dies the same way that she ends up dying at the end of the episode, I think we have this character that we've loved for 7 seasons.
Right.
I think we have that
and
back.
you get enough vengeance.
Yeah, I think we have that back. So it's one of those things did, the creators decide to take her full, as like a Star Wars reference, full Sith, and go full dark side on her, or can she still be redeemed in some sense?
I think next episode, it's going to be full tyrant. Not to mention, the only... She's still got the Dothraki and the Unsullied. Both are not Westerosi. Those are her supporters, right? The Northerners are going to be slowly creeping away. It's going to be down to Arya or Jon have to take her out. And the only way you can actually take her out is by taking Drogon out.
Right.
So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking she might even be so... bloodlust is high. You know what I mean? You just killed a ton of people. There's you do anything, it doesn't really matter. It's all part of it's rolled into the same snowball. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you go off and you kill a bunch of other people, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
So I'm thinking I would not be surprised if she is so bold to challenge Jon in a way that she kind of tries to make it that Drogon doesn't just eat him right away, but she wants him dead because she knows that he's the threat.
Right.
Even though she likes him, but if he's not gonna be on my side doing my thing,
Right, you're my enemy now.
you're my enemy.
Yeah.
So he's definitely the threat. This is gonna go down. We mentioned Grey Worm, Jon showdown is gonna go down.
They played that up a lot last night. You had when Jon entered the throne room at Dragonstone, Grey Worm stood there for
Right.
an extended
Bounced for a
period of
second.
time, and then had to wait until Dany said, no, it's okay.
Right.
And then you have at least 3 shots of them looking at each other throughout the battle.
Right, and parts when Jon holds the forces back, Grey Worm pushes forward, right? It's going to come down to, this guy didn't step up when we needed him to during the battle. You know what I mean? Bad reference to the Queen.
Right.
Now, how do you kill the dragon? The only way you just sneak up on him and chop his head off, I guess.
Yeah, I have no idea how they're going to kill him. It's one of those things unless Jon has the baby dragons, but I think that's the last scene.
I think that's the last scene, too.
I think the baby dragons come. He's Targaryen. He can rule now. He still has dragons just in case, but he's going to rule a different way. And it's Jon. Jon is this, moral center.
He's like Ned.
Yeah. And so it'll make it interesting because being the moral center doesn't make you a good politician. We saw that with Ned before. No. It's what's going to lead Jon to end up dying, unfortunately. My favorite character in the show is going to end up dead. My second favorite character in the show is going to end up dead.
See, I wouldn't be surprised if Dany and Jon both died. Because
I think the more I'm thinking about it now, and the more that I think would be best for Westeros is Sansa. Sansa ends up taking the Iron Throne, knows Cersei and her good traits and bad traits. Littlefinger, ultimate politician. I was never a huge fan of Littlefinger, but you can't argue the ultimate politician of Littlefinger.
Right.
And then still has the Stark.
Right, and she's got some pull in the veil. But I just don't see how you get her to the throne. You really need a lot of people who are willing to throw behind that horse. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you will if Jon and Dany are both dead. Like, who's going to take over then?
Yeah, no, I hear
Because
you.
Tyrion is dead. In the first 20 minutes of the show,
Yeah, because
Tyrion dies.
he released Jaime.
He released Jaime. She's going to find out because where's Cersei's body? Why is Jaime not locked up? What happened?
Right.
Oh, the Hand of the Queen said that he wanted to talk to him.
Right.
So
She probably already
finds
knows.
She probably does. And so he's done. Like Tyrion, unfortunately, like I said, my second favorite character, he's going to be done.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to you have Jon, Arya, Sansa, Dany. Those are your 4. Now, the one thing that's funny is I was going through and looking at tattoos today, and Sophie Turner has a tattoo of the Stark direwolf. And underneath it, it says the pack survives. What if, everybody kept saying, like, there's no way, all the Starks survive or whatever. What if all the Starks survive? All the Starks live, and everybody else just crumbles.
Rickon, poor guy.
Well, yeah.
And Rob.
Yeah, Rob ended up with a wolf on his head.
Yeah. But, I mean...
But I mean,
I could see that.
Of the ones that were still living, obviously.
I feel like I would not be... The way the show's written, I would not be surprised if Dany is still alive, though, at the end. And Jon gets killed by her. And it ends on like a tyrant in power kind of move,
Maybe.
And then I wouldn't be surprised if 10 years later they came back and they did like a 10-year later storyline off of it. I think
possible.
that would be pretty cool because then you could spin it any way you want. You have free reign,
Yeah. Like, not based on anything George R. is writing?
Well, he hasn't written past this. He's written a lot in the past of it,
Right.
So in the future, it's whatever you want.
Well, one of the interesting things that we saw today on Collider.com was an article talking about the actor that plays Selmy, Barristan Selmy, had heard from George himself that he's done with books 6 and 7. And they had made an agreement because the last book came out in 2011 when the show was in its
infancy.
First season, second season, or just starting the second season. And what they said was he's done with the books, but they made an agreement saying that he wasn't going to publish any more of A Song of Ice and Fire until after the show had run its course.
And it'd be good because it would muddy the waters a little bit, even though after book 3, show takes off in a totally different direction.
Well, and I think that's part of it, though, because you have, you can grab from books 4 and 5 like they did,
right?
But they couldn't bring every character that was in those books, and so, like say, Lady Stoneheart has a part to play in whatever it is, either Arya's coming back to kill the Freys or whatever those parts are. You can't introduce those parts because you never introduced that character in the show.
Right.
Well,
I think the nice thing about the books, too, was, like, right now when we're just spitballing and we're like, well, if Jon and Dany die, who's going to take the Iron Throne? Well, the nice thing about the books is the families aren't so easily wiped out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, Highgarden doesn't have only one son and daughter. They have, like, 3 sons and Marjorie, So it's like, and Loras is the 3rd son.
Right.
So the heir to Highgarden is a dude. He's in the story, but he's not Loras. Then in Dorne, you have more than just one son too. Right. So then it's like you have more of these families that can actually take part in the story. Whereas here they just simplified everything, and then everything boils down to like, well, we don't know any characters now that could possibly sit the Iron Throne. other than Danny and Jon.
Well,
and in reality, too, like, nobody really knows about Jon other than the North. You know what I mean? So he'd be kind of a dark horse